Hello, hello, everyone.
Hi, how are you? Hi,
I'm great.
Hillary.
Hello. How's it going?
Good. We're excited to have you here with us today.
Me
Yes,
Yay.
too.
and this is my first official live on my YouTube channel. So I'm going to do the introduction today. Today, Susie and I are interviewing Hillary. Hillary comes to us today to share her personal story and healing journey from being married and having children at a young age, growing up early when it comes to having children at such a young age, filing for divorce and finding herself entrenched in what she thought was love, to finally leaving abuse and choosing herself in a bold way. And before I hand it over to Hillary, I just wanted to highlight a couple of important topics that we're going to discuss. The first one is how common it is to attract and fall victim to narcissistic abuse when we find ourselves on the rebound. I've talked to several women and men who find themselves lost in long-term relationships, in those long-term relationships, and kind of desperately seeking love and things they didn't have in their previous relationship, and they fall victim to narcissistic abuse. It's so common. And I want to highlight that. And the second is how foreign it feels after we leave abuse to finally choose ourselves. And those are some really strong themes that we're going to talk through today. So without further ado, I am going to turn this over to Hillary and just ask you, Hillary, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your backstory, and what led you here?
So, I had my first child at a very young age. I was 17 years old, and I ended up marrying my high school boyfriend, who was not the father of that child. But we kind of grew up together. His parents had moved out of town, and I had a baby, and we kind of formed a makeshift family unit, and we proceeded. We moved forward, and we had 2 more children together, and we were amazing parents together, and grew, and we grew up together. So he's one of my closest friends still. I love and care about him, but we weren't in love with each other. We were great parents, but even better roommates. And so I just, around 20, it was like an off and on thing. It was like, should I stay or should I go? And 2021-ish, I think it was, when I finally said, this isn't working. You're not happy. I'm not happy. Let's end this. And so that was the end of 2021. And then we filed for divorce, and that happened. And I was like ready. I was like, I'm looking for love. Like, I tried filling the love buckets with chickens or kittens or puppies or whatever. And my kids were older and starting to do their own thing. And I was ready to try to find the love I felt I was missing. So I dated a little bit, and then I met my ex, Earl. And we connected via
Oh, Earl.
Earl. And we connected he spent the time. I never had the love bombing. People talk about love bombing and elaborate gifts or, special attention or anything like that. It was more so just connection of time via talking on the phone or spending time together doing doing things. Because me and my ex-husband, we did not do a lot of stuff together.
Yeah.
So it rapidly progressed. I had owned my own home, and he asked me to move in with him. And very shortly after we met, and I was totally naive and hook, line, sinker bought into it. And I sold my family home and just, moved kids and moved animals and all that stuff to move in with him. And that's my biggest regret. But so, it was shortly after, he gave me the attention and what I thought was love. And I walked right into it.
It's okay. We all do. I feel you holding on to that guilt or shame. And I mean, that's the reason we have the show is to highlight others' stories, to make others feel less alone, right? And the hope is that whoever is listening may resonate and empower them to make decisions that are right for them and their relationships and their healing journey. So you're not alone. You are absolutely not alone.
No.
And I know before I hand it off to you, Susie, I just want to highlight that it's just, if you've heard one story, you've heard them all. And it almost always happens in that way. Abusive partnerships or abusive partners typically move very quickly, moving in together in marriage, moving in together in marriage and children. Those are the top three, I guess, tactics that they use to feel like they are securing their victims in that relationship. So I just want to emphasize that it's very common.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So looking back on that relationship, what were the main things? I know you said you kind of felt like it was love, but what were some things that drew you in now looking back that you've identified as maybe red flags or signs of an unhealthy relationship that at the time felt right and felt healthy? What can you think of anything that in particular?
He is very charismatic. Very charismatic. So I kind of like bought into that. I was aware of like the quote unquote like red flag. I have a hard time. I'm a nurse by trade, and I have a hard time with the labeling of things like, rewind 6 years ago, everybody was like labeled bipolar. Everybody was everybody's this or everybody's that, and putting labels on stuff and, red flags. And I wasn't truly understanding that, but there was definitely the flags that I ignored until they were on fire and slapping me in the face, and I couldn't ignore them anymore. But I made excuses for him or poo-pooed him. Some of his behaviors I had seen in other toxic family members that I actually had separated myself from over time. So I kind of justified some of the things that he did, or maybe labeled like an understanding of like, oh, well, that's his ADHD, or that's his ODD, or that's this. And I need to figure out our way of communication. And that actually, we did a lot of like justifying of that because we did move in so quickly together, is the meshing of our communication styles or behaviors such as house cleanings or anything like that.
Yeah, just writing it off to kind of the newness, getting used to each other and things like that.
Yeah.
But
he seemed very he seemed intelligent. He like I say, he's just very charismatic and seemed to want to connect with me, or we talked and spent time doing stuff together, and it was the time
you were craving that. Yeah, for sure. That makes sense.
So I'm curious to know, at what point did you notice his personality shift?
Probably pretty early on, actually. Looking back, I did a lot of reflecting, but like it really started after I moved in, were the big ones. I was the big ones. And I'm like, oh Lord, what have I done? But again, when he cheated on me, I was very early on after I moved in. And at that point I was like, I just moved my kids and I just relocated animals and I sold my house. And I had left then, like I packed all my stuff up and I went to a local hotel and I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, what am I going to do? Go back to, because he lived an hour and change away from me. So I moved down there. So I was basically down there alone. And so I'm like, what am I going to do now? I stayed after that because literally the same day, his father fell ill and that he was sick, and there's a lot of drama around that. So I stayed to calm the waves in one way or another. So,
Right.
but it's the masks. Looking back, it was very soon after I moved in.
So sorry, Susie, I know you have a question.
Oh no, you're fine. I was gonna ask something.
Well, I just want to highlight also some of the things that you said, Hillary, because it's also very common. What happens is we start to make excuses and justify, right? Like it's our nervous system and our minds trying to logically piece together what's happening in this shift, right? It's like this person was, giving me all of this attention, made me feel loved in all of the ways that I haven't in so long. And now we're living under the same roof. Oh, well, this is new for both of us. Maybe, maybe he's experiencing some of the insecurities or nervousness that I'm having over this, or maybe it's because his dad is sick and he's extra stressed. And we spend so much time focusing on what we can do to avoid it. It's almost like the dynamic shifts, but we don't realize that it turns from them giving us love and admiration and attention to us basically chasing and hustling to receive that from them again. And so I just wanted to point that out to anybody that may be listening, that's also a very common tactic. And when you're out, like once you get out of abuse and you start to reflect, a lot of people have that realization later. So
definitely. Yeah.
And I think that I had been exposed, childhood to reactive, looking back, like a reactive abusive person in my family and my dad, and some of his behaviors, and you just you learn how to skirt off that, or the eggshells, or how to avoid, or how to deal with.
Right.
Yep. Fortunately for me, I also I kind of a little bit run my mouth if I get challenged or speak up for myself, and that didn't help much. But
speaking up for yourself is not an unfortunate situation,
right?
The method that you do it in, and I was constantly trying to change that. We were in couples later on down the road. We were in couples therapy, blah 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 blah. Just trying to appease the unappeasable. So. But yeah, so I'm getting off topic here, but yes, it was, early on. So, and when the whole cheating thing happened, very early on, that was the first time he put his hands on me. And I was it was at first, this is going to sound disgusting, but I'm like, oh, he's really upset that I'm going to leave. Maybe he actually does care, but it wasn't the situation.
Yeah. And I would also kind of highlight in your story too, something that's very common for these relationships to move so quickly. And once somebody who is abusive or narcissistic feels like they've kind of got their hook in you, that's when that mask can oftentimes come down and that bad behavior to start. So it sounds like he felt like you were kind of entrenched and no holding back that bad behavior. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, they don't start off full Monty. It's slowly.
Right. It can be a slow. Right. Definitely. So I think most of us, looking back too, we have kind of that aha moment, or that moment when you're like, okay, I'm done. I'm actually done this time. Can you tell me a little bit about that for you? What was kind of your aha moment that this wasn't healthy and you needed to get out of this relationship?
It actually was presented to me. I had to leave, or else he was going to take my life. It was the final time that there was violence. I knew that. Well, actually, I won't say that's my final time, because I knew I needed to physically leave. So it kind of all just fell into place. I won't make myself sound, I won't make myself sound crazier than I sound, or I should
That
sound, but
sounds crazy.
My
That's what
intuition.
they want us to think, though. So,
Right. Mm-hmm.
Well,
negative
I'm about to drop the universe stuff and the intuition stuff, but
That's okay.
I think the universe was trying to tell me many, many, many times that this is not for you. In fact, like the night that the night that we quote unquote, like that was the turning point in our relationship, was he was sick with appendicitis, and I was on my way down there to go see him. I didn't know he was sick at the time, but on my way down there to go see him, and it was a snowstorm, and it was later in the evening, and I actually went off the road, and I had to get towed off. I had gone into an embankment, and I actually had to get towed off, but I still got in my car, and I still made my truck down. But I think it was the universe being like, don't do this.
Right.
Don't do this. So there was many times in between. There was, the time I rage packed all my stuff and took off to the hotel. There was another time that I rented a U-Haul and booked a plane ticket for my son to help me move, and I was going to head on south. But I had known in my gut, and I ignored my gut. And the other times of violence, we weren't at home. We were the most other time we were actually on vacation, so I couldn't leave then. But this time we weren't at home. But I had to wait till I got home, and I was just like, I didn't think I was going to see my kids again. So I'm like, I can't. I already chose my kids once, or chose him over my kids once. So I'm not going to do it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then,
go ahead.
I physically left, but I didn't emotionally leave. I unfortunately remained in contact with him, and so I left in February, and very end of February, and I remained in contact with him, and it was very much an emotional connection still. He was claiming to getting help and this, that, and the other thing, and he was working on himself, and I was all sorts of
promises,
all the steps of cognitive dissonance and all that stuff. It's just because we just making all the excuses. We're all broken, and then the final aha moment was that I needed to absolutely positively be done with this man. Was I had found out that shortly after I left, he had moved somebody else in and was remaining in contact with me and having this relationship with this other person. So I was like, what am I doing? So that was the pivotal moment of this has got to stop. So.
Right. Yeah. So what did that exit out of the relationship look like for you? Was it kind of sudden? Did you plan for it?
It was sudden. So I said, we were out of town. It was a Wednesday, and we weren't supposed to go back home until Friday. And so because of my physical condition after the assault, the shock of all of it, I was totally out of body, and kind of just flew caution to the wind, and it was just I knew, the small little voice in my head was like, you got to do this, you got to leave. And I was intending to leave the following Wednesday, because I knew that I couldn't leave normally. I couldn't be like, this is over, I'm leaving.
Right.
Because every
regular breakup would be,
every attack was when I was trying to leave. So I knew for my safety, I had to leave when he wasn't home. So I was supposed to go away with him that Sunday. So I was planning for the Wednesday. I was going to tell him when we were in our couples counseling session that, and he would be an hour away at work, and I would have most of my stuff out already. But I woke up a Sunday morning in the middle of the night, and I was like, I can't stay. And so I woke up, got out of bed that Sunday morning and called my mother, called my daughter, and called my brother and said, I got to go. So,
yeah.
So I watched his little location and made sure he was far enough away and planned it time-wise, that I would definitely have a couple of hours of safety. And I had to like involve his son, because his son was living with us, to like, please, asked him to please not tell him or his grandmother that this is what was happening. And he did. He gave me a big window of time. And yeah, so we kind of went in and took all my crap and
got out of there.
Going back to the universe, man. It was a Sunday morning, then in February, and I found a beautiful apartment that I could take my dogs to. No money down, no signing, no nothing. Just show up and retreat.
Wow.
Another sign from the universe that you were.
Yeah, we're gonna make your entry into this relationship as hard as possible, but the exit strategy is going to be easy.
Yes.
Well, the exit wasn't early either. So, but
well,
yeah,
it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a couple of things. The power and control dynamic, right? Like he lost control every time. Or he got physical every time he sensed a loss of control over you and your physical being and your decisions, right? So that's also very common. Unfortunately, that is when they feel like they are losing control over their victims, they will assert dominance. And that is, I mean, they always say the most dangerous time for women is when they're exiting the relationship. That is the most dangerous time of being in a relationship with an abusive person. So there's that. So kudos to you for planning and making sure that you had, plenty of time to get out.
Yeah.
And then something else that you were talking about, when he would get abusive, it's almost like he knew you didn't have anywhere to go. Like you were always away, right? I guess you were on vacation. Is that what you said?
One time we were on vacation. The other time it was like a work vacation thing. He was doing something for work and like a side job thing. And I was tagging along. I work remotely, so I'm able to work from wherever. So I usually tag along, and we're
Yeah,
and
that's also very common.
A power thing.
Yeah, and it's very common when abusers have their victim, isolated, so to speak, to have those incidences pop up during those times when you're a bit more.
It's a strong one, because even when we were away and this last time, and that it happened, I was like, I can't drive. There's no physical, what just happened. But I did get my own hotel room in the hotel that we were staying at. But somehow, I don't know how it happened, looking back, but he ended up in my room, so it's just and yeah.
I don't remember, Hillary, did you get a restraining order when you left, or an order of
No,
protection?
I didn't.
Okay, I couldn't remember if you did or not.
I had the receipts, but I never filed anything. In my heart of hearts, I just wanted to be done and just be away from him. And that's actually, I would say the last month and a half is my strongest period of no contact, and
Good.
Really setting strong boundaries with him. And so, yeah.
Good. Yeah.
So like I say, I was in New Hampshire for a couple months, or from February till August, and the final emotional betrayal, which I think emotional betrayals are almost harder than physical attacks. But after the final emotional betrayal, I was like, what am I doing? And I think that was the universe pushing me finally to and I made a big move. I packed a couple weeks worth of clothes, some craft stuff, and headed south. And it's really pivotal to my healing, for sure.
How many miles is that for you? Because it was 1,000.
I looked it up right before this. I'm like, how many miles did I have to go away? 1,400 and something miles away.
1,400 miles.
1,400. Yeah.
but in today's day and age, technology is everywhere. So it's,
well, that's a good segue into my next question, which is, what are you doing to help aid your healing? Like, what sort of healing modalities are you using that you found beneficial for your healing? Because you've been on, you were in this relationship for what, 3 years? Is that what?
Like 2.5. Yeah, about
2.5. Okay. So you were in this abusive relationship that it was physical abuse, emotional abuse, psychological abuse for 2.5 years. And you've been out since August. Is that what you said? Or is that's when you moved, isn't it?
I physically left in February.
Okay. So a little under a year that you've been out. So what sort of things are you doing to help aid your healing that you've found beneficial?
Well, education. Like I say, I was a nurse, so I kind of understand some mental stuff and disorders, but education was pivotal, like so important. Like,
and was that around like understanding abusers or what
understanding
type of
narcissism? Like, yeah. Like I say, I hate the labels, but it walks like a duck, it talks like a quacks like a duck.
Yeah.
But I had actually a hard time because of my concussion. I had a hard time like reading and listening and comprehending. And then after the whole letdown of the abuse, like I'm still having a hard time like reading and retaining information and that kind of stuff. So I, just audiobooks and like just even like little bits of information that gets planted in there. It's like, okay, this is making sense. So the audiobook I listened to was "It's Not You" by Dr. Ramanati, or whatever her name is. That was like eye-opening. Like it was written about him. This was like, oh my Lord! Like
I love her.
I haven't read that book yet, but I've heard several.
I remember when I first moved out. I remember like I was laying in bed, and my mom was like hanging curtains, and I think she put on like one of her like hour-and-a-half like YouTube videos, and I'm like, it's just background noise. Like I can't comprehend this. Like it's like because up until this point, like our relationship was quote unquote I call it our faux engagement because we were totally supposedly engaged, but it's just a faux engagement. But we were in a quote unquote high spot or a decent spot. But that was just all part of it. It's all smoke and mirrors. And so it was hard. Like I was processing quote unquote, losing a relationship and love and supposedly, and I did a lot of sleeping. I did lots of naps, lots of
I actually just dropped a short last night about feeling fatigue after you get out of abuse. What happens is your body feels you're in a constant state of fear when you are when you're entrenched in the relationship and they're always around. You're in a constant state of fear or survival, and so your body is constantly activated, even if you don't realize it is. And so when you get out and you're safe, your body finally feels safe to put its guard down and rest, because you've just been so nervous and anxious and exerting energy you didn't even realize you were exerting. So that's normal.
That constant fight or flight mode.
Yeah,
for sure.
I definitely made poor choices. I definitely, I was like, we talk about alcohol and, nicotine and things like that, surfaced back up too, because it was just calming, but try to get away from that. But anyway, so yeah,
right.
Just
one step at a time.
One step at a time. Just education and reconnecting with myself. And whether I love being creative and I love my children and being with them. So that was incredibly healing. So I don't know why I get so teary every time I talk about them, but
it's okay. Let it out.
It's normal. Yes. Tears are welcome.
So just, slowly learning and slowly making sense of it. He always he tried to send me pictures or oh, remember this? And I'm like, yeah, I remember that. This is when you did blah, 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 blah. And so not buying into the, missing out on this, that, and the other thing. It's, remembering and making sense of that this is complete and utter crap. Like this was
Right.
Good for
why.
you.
Remembering the facts. Yeah.
And just connecting with others. Like I feel like as women in general, like we everywhere from like our periods on up, like we're supposed to be like hush hush or like not embarrassing, women can't toot or burp or we can't have bad days, good days. So
we always
stay
have to
small,
have it
stay
together.
quiet.
So I think I have to set in the group too. Like I'm not ready to start burning my bra and my legs, but I feel like as women we basically run our ships, and but we don't really take care of ourselves, and we second guess ourselves, and we're our biggest critics. And I don't know where I was going with that, but just reconnecting with the things that I used to enjoy and took pride in. I sank a lot of money into like learning how to do stained glass or hosting little craft nights or entertaining with my friends or going out dancing with my friends.
That's awesome.
The biggest part of it though is connecting with the woman that had moved in with him, and she became one of my closest friends. And it's made me feel like, it's not just me, and
right.
me that this is, and that was an incredible gift to process together.
Right.
Some of the stuff that we went through, there's another lady I met, and we're close friends too, like that are also his victims, and it's like, okay, I feel validated now. Like this isn't me.
Yeah, that's huge. Makes you feel so much less alone in the whole thing, I'm sure. Yeah. And they shared very similar experiences as you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And disturbingly so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it sounds like you've been doing so much work to rebuild and choosing yourself, after all of this. What, looking back on kind of how far you've come, what are you most proud of in terms of where you're at today?
I focus a lot on the sense of home. I feel like the sense of home, in its safety, all the feelings that you feel like is quote unquote home, and I have that. I'm starting to have that for sure, or I definitely have it. I definitely have it. So. I definitely have it, it's not the physical location, it's not the building, it's just the home is within you, and making connections with people that were challenged as a result of behaviors or how I handled myself afterwards, and reconnecting with them, and choosing to eliminate people from my life that I had been throughout over my lifetime, but really cutting out the toxicity. So yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds like it motivated
you. That's a lot easier said than done, by the way, for anyone that may be listening. Because we go through life with, I guess, certain expectations, and we grow. We find comfort in, I guess, consistency and predictability. And when these sort of things happen, I mean, you went through two very traumatic situations. You do still have the close relationship with your ex-husband, and that's wonderful, but there still is a phase of grieving the life that you had together when you go through divorce, right? It's only natural for both parties to grieve whenever you decide to go that route and separate. So you had that, and you had 20 years of predictability, and then starting over isn't easy, and then you landed in an abusive situation. So I guess where I'm going with this is you've gone through a lot. a lot. I mean, that's a lot that's a lot of life change. And the fact that you are taking action and deciding that you're going to build the life that you want to live, one that you love to live, and include, cut out the people that you knew and that you were comfortable with. That's not easy. And I mean, it's almost like trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma. And some people can get lost in that cycle and downward spiral. And so I am going to tell you that excuse me, I am most proud of you for not downward spiraling, and you've decided that even though it is hard and it's uncomfortable, you're determined to build the life that you want to live and include those that you love and to cut out those who don't add value to it anymore. So,
yeah, that's amazing.
It's been a challenging year, so for sure. So, but doing it.
2025 is going to be amazing.
Doing it.
Yeah,
it's going to be amazing. It's been a lot of. I'll add that I moved in with my brother, who's one of the most amazing humans, and we were processing loss of. Both of us are processing loss of toxic relationships at the same time, which is also a huge blessing that I had. So, so many blessings, so many things to be grateful for, and.
We got a comment, Hillary, from Matt. He said, "I'm so proud of you, Hillary."
Oh,
I'm proud of my Maddie too. So it hasn't been easy for either one of us, but
you're doing it.
We're doing it.
You're doing the hard things.
Yeah.
It's hard now, but it gets easier and way more lovely later.
Yes,
for
it
sure.
is. Like there's so many, and that's the thing too. Is like we can focus on all the crap and the bullshit, but you're just gonna create power of the mind, mindset, and positivity, and try to be positive. And I'll add that, so not only am I I left, I think the key reason I left my marriage was I was tired of feeling alone. And I am absolutely positively the most alone I've ever been in my life. So physically alone. So I work from home. I'm in a new city and my kids are spread out everywhere. And so it's totally empty nest as well. So it's figuring out
huge adjustment
because I've been a mom since I was 17.
So your identity,
rebuilding your identity.
Yeah.
We could do a show on that alone.
Totally. We totally could.
But and also I'll point out exploring different avenues of what spirituality or just whatever you want to believe in, I don't totally believe God as per se, but just figuring out who you are and what you value and you cherish. And
that's huge. Yeah. What would you tell or say to the women out there who may be watching this, who are kind of entrenched in an unhealthy relationship? What is the biggest piece of advice that you would give to somebody in that situation?
That you're not alone, and it's definitely not your fault. And I'm a go big or go home kind of girl, so I'm I'm just gonna pull this plug and just do this shit right now.
Safely.
I am not a planner. I'm not a saver. I will probably never financially recover from this breakup, but I'll figure it out. So
you will.
When you feel there's not a way to figure it out, there's always a way to figure it out.
Yes.
You only need your clothes on your back and your kids, and the rest will fall into place. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Asking my 20-year-old daughter to come help me move out was probably my lowest point of my year. So, but yeah, you can do it.
Sounds like you have a very supportive family, though.
Yeah, I do. But even if you don't have family or you don't have friends, you're not alone. Just use the services or whatever is out there for you, and don't.
Yeah.
Well, and I know we have to go, but
sorry,
sorry, Susie. I want to what you said is really important. When we're in these abusive situations, well, not even abuse, right? Like when we're in situations that forces us to go a different direction, I think we're so focused on what our life is like at that point in time that it's impossible to envision a life any other way. And so we assume that if we cut those people out, or if we move 1,400 miles away, or whatever it is that you want to change, we assume the worst. When in reality, by making those decisions and acting on that, it makes space to create room for new, better, stronger connections than you've ever had. I mean, I think that when I'm coaching, I think that's the biggest hurdle that we have to get through, is the fear of the unknown, of it's going to be, if I stay here, at least I know it's shitty here, but I know it and I'm familiar with it. If I leave this, I know that I'm going to lose people. I'm going to lose familiarity. I'm going to lose everything, and not realize all of the things that they can gain because they just can't imagine it. And so I just want to end on that note, that if you are afraid of the unknown, lean into it, because there's negative emotions and feelings that come along with healing and ending these painful relationships. But once you get through that and you shed that weight, you open room for deeper connections, new friends, new chosen family even. So the unknown can be scary and it could be worse, but if you do the work, it can be way more beautiful than you could ever imagine. So I'll get off.
It's the small things too. Like it's the small things, like it doesn't have to be big, huge things like big moves or this, that, and that thing. It's like, it's the small stuff, like, hanging the clothes in your closet the way you want to hang them versus the way they made you, or not adding 2 cranks of pepper to your mashed potatoes. You can just do it however you want to. Like,
these are real examples, by the way.
Real true examples. So the things that you don't like doing but you feel like you have to, like they're glorious and they're small. And they're like within your control. So
yes. Relish those moments.
Sure. That control. Like, I'm going to hang the hangers this way, or I'm not going to do it this way. I'm going to do it my way. So
yes, yeah. And I wanted to mention, when you were talking about, telling women that they're not alone. I don't think we mentioned this yet, but you're part of our Facebook group, Rise and Thrive Women. So I just wanted to highlight that Heather and I do host a Facebook support group. I think I've linked it in my comments, but it is a safe, supportive space for women who are either experiencing abuse in their relationships or are recovering from abuse. So if that's something that you feel would be beneficial for you, feel free to join us over there. We do host a monthly live support group on Facebook. So you have that opportunity to chat with Heather and I, and chat with other ladies that may be in similar situations. So check that out if that's something that you would.
Yeah, I'll make one final little statement here, is that, like, to not downward spiral, like, get off of the apps. Like, some of the groups are very can slow healing, because the stories can be triggering, and your algorithms for your reels and stuff like that can be like, when you're ready to like start healing, then get back on the apps and like find the positive things. But like when you're trying to like figure out how to leave or process, that's okay. Like spend some time, but don't
get stuck in that. Right.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Figure out who you are and the life you want to build, and then you can add to it.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Yes. Awesome. Did we have any questions come in, Heather, while we were chatting?
I don't think so. I'm not live on Instagram, so I don't have anything.
I don't see any on YouTube. So, but feel free to leave questions in the comments. If anybody has questions for Heather and I or Hillary, we'd be happy to answer those for you.
Yes.
So,
Thank you so much, Hillary. It's
Thank
so important
you.
that we highlight survivor stories. And for those who may not be watching live and still listening, Susie and I have an entire lineup of more survivor stories or healing practitioners, I guess, to help those in need of education around healing and different alternative healing modalities that you may or may not be aware of. So we will share that calendar as soon as we have it. But we just finished interviews last week. Yeah, last week. And we've put together a calendar. And so we're excited to share that. And we will see you there next time.
It's going to be so good. And we're also hosting a webinar next month on January 11th. We're hosting Breaking Bonds, right?
Yep.
We're hosting a webinar about trauma bonds, some education around what they are, how to successfully break a trauma bond. That is something that does keep us going back to these relationships. And even once you've left, it can still be a challenge even if you're not in the relationship. So if you have been struggling to leave or you've been going back, it could be a good webinar for you. So I've linked that in the show notes as well.
I think I have it linked in my YouTube page as well. So
yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Hillary.
Thank you.
I'm proud of you.
Yeah, so proud of you. You've done so many amazing things.
I'm gonna stage my room now.
All right. I love it. Stage away. All right. Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Bye, ladies.
Bye, everybody. Bye.